This week's Parshas Parshiyos is Parshas Tazria-Metzora. Pasuk in Perek Yudalid, Pasuk Lamedalid in Parshas Metzora says, Ki savoyu el eretz Canaan asher ani noisein lachem la'achuza v'nosati nega tzaras beveis eretz achuzaschem. So the Pasuk is talking about nigei batim, and it says, Ki savoyu el eretz Canaan asher ani noisein lachem la'achuza. So the question arises, why by nigei batim does the Torah say it's only going to be when you come to Eretz Canaan, when you come to Eretz Yisrael? Why does the Torah only say that by nigei batim? What about the negoim that come on begadim? What about the negoim that come on people? So that's one kasha. There's a famous medrash which is in Vayikra Rabbah, Parsha Yud Zayin, Perek Dalid, and it's more barichas in Rus, Parsha Beis, Ois, Yud. The Medrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a merachim, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu betchila hein bayin al beisai. Betchila the negaim come on your house. Im chazar by mutav, if you do tshuva, then good. V'im lav hareyin tu'unin chalitza, you need to take out the stones. And the Medrash continues, Im chazar by mutav, if you did tshuva, then good. V'im lav tu'unin netitza, then you have to smash them. Chazar by mutav, if you did tshuva, then good. V'im lav bayin al habegadim tu'unin kibus. That if you do tshuva, then good. If not, then it comes onto the begadim, and the begadim need to be washed. And the Medrash goes on, so on and so forth. And acher kachin bayin al gufay. Only if you don't do tshuva from all of these steps, then it comes onto the guf. Then the negaim come onto the guf. So the Medrash is telling avek that because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a merachim, first he brings the negaim onto the house, onto the money. Then he brings it closer, he brings it onto the begadim. And then he brings it closer, and he even brings it onto the guf. So the question is, so then why, when the Torah shtel davek, the negayim, did the Torah first, in Parshas Tazria, it starts off with nigei adam, and then it continues with nigei begadim, and then it ends off in Parshas Metzora with nigei batim. It's mamish pung fakert, it's mamish the opposite. So what's going on over here? What's the pshat? So the Ramban, ki yadua, in Perek Yud Gimel, Pasuk Mem Zayin, the Ramban says that zeha inyan einay bateva klal, v'loy hoive ba'olam, v'chein nigei habatim. The Ramban says, he's talking about nigei begadim, and he says that this Indian is not beteva klal. It's not a mitzias. Aval b'yos Yisrael shleimim laHashem, yeh ruach Hashem tamid aleim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ruach will be on them, lahamid gufam ubigdeim ubateim b'maratayv. And he says, v'kasher yikra be'echad mehem devar chet va'avein, when somebody does a chet, Yisrael ekir be'besarei be'bigdai be'beisai, laharis ki Hashem sar me'olav. That the Ramban says that when somebody does a chet, there will be a miscoloring, a discoloring either in his basar or his beged or his house to show that Hashem is not with him. And then he says an amazing thing. He says, V'hinei einay noyeg elo ba'aretz shehi nachlas Hashem. That these negayim are only in Eretz Yisrael, which is nachlas Hashem. K'moisha amar ki savayu el Eretz Canaan. Like it says in our pasuk that we quoted in the beginning, only once you come to Eretz Yisrael. And he says, Ve'eina davar mipnei hayosei chayvas karka. It's not because it's tali in land that we know that all mitzvahs that are tali in the land are only in Eretz Yisrael. And you might think that since this is talking about something in the house, so it's something that's totally in the land. So it's like Shemitah, or it's like a Meiser that is only noig in Eretz Yisrael. But he says, no. Aval mipnei shelo yavei ha'inyan hahu elo be'eretz hanivcheres asher Hashem hanichbad sheichem b'seicha. This ruchniistika einish, this punishment is only going to come in Eretz Yisrael, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sheichen in it. So that's what the Ramban says, which by saying this, he answers our first kasha, that why does the Torah only say, Ki savayu al Eretz Canaan? Why does the Torah say it by Nigei Batim and not by Nigei Adam? Because Nigei Adam is a Tevadiga thing. That could be Noyeg even in Chutz La'aretz. But Nigei Batim, that's only Noyeg in Eretz Yisrael, and that's why it says Ki savayu al Eretz Canaan. Rabbeinu Bachya at the end of Rabbeinu Bachya says a very similar thing in Perek Yud Gimel Pasuk Nun Ches at the end of the parsha. He says the same exact lashon. He says it a little clearer. He says Hayumayim Hashgacha Gemura V'loi Haya Inyan Tivi Elaneis Gadol. And he says V'loi Haya Ha'inyan B'chutz La'aretz Ki Im Be'eretz Yisrael. It was only in Chutz La'aretz. It was only in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. So then Rabbeinu Bachya later on in Parshas Metzora, Perek Yudalid, Pasuk Nun Dalid, the Rabbeinu Bachya, he answers the second kasha. He says, why does the Torah have it out of order? If according to the Medrash, it should be first Batim, then Begadim, then Adam, and the Torah has it mamish the opposite. So the Rabbeinu Bachya says that he asks the kasha. He's very bothered by the question, and he says, "Lefisha Torah kol derachel darchei noyam v'chol nesivoseh shalom." The Torah wanted that the punishments should go down in chumrah. So the Torah started with the most chamerdika one of Nigei Adam, and then it went to Begadim, and then it went to Batim. So the Torah wants to go down. The Torah doesn't want the Peranius to go greater, to get greater. So that's how Rabbeinu Bachya answers L'shitase of why does the Torah say it out of order. This is his teretz. But if you look at the Cheskuni in Perek Yudalid, Pasuk Lamed Dalid, the Cheskuni has a different mahalach, which is the chayr more pashut. To answer the first kasha, Ki savayu al Eretz Canaan asher ani noisen lechem. Why does it say it by Nigei Batim? So he says because Nigei Batim weren't noyeg in the midbar. In the midbar they didn't have houses, but Nigei Adam and Nigei Adam and the Begadim they had in the midbar. So those could be noyeg right away. So that's why the Torah said. That's why the Torah said them. The Torah said that. That's why the Torah said Nigei Adam and Begadim first, because they're naig right away. Nigei Batim, they didn't have houses in the midbar. It was only Nigei. Once they came to Eretz Yisrael and they settled down and they built houses or they got houses they took houses from the Goyim. That's what the Cheskuni says for a more pashup shot than the Ramban. The Orach Chaim goes with this mahalach, and he says that it's still a shtickle shver. Why this is a nice pshat from the Cheskuni. He doesn't bring the Cheskuni, but he says the same mahalach, and he says, but still Nigei Begadim should have came first, because lefi the Medrash, you're right. Nigei Batim are only Nigei at the end, but Nigei Begadim and Nigei Adam are Nigei right away. So then Begadim should have came first. So he says in Mahalach, he says that really you have to know another thing. The order of Parshas Tazria is Nigei Adam, then it talks about Nigei Begadim, and then it goes back to Nigei Adam. In the beginning of Parshas Metzora, it says, Zois Tia Toras HaMetzora, B'yayim Taharasei. And it goes and explains, how does a person who got a nega on their body, how do they become tahar? So Fekta Orach Chaim, why didn't we just finish talking about Nigei Adam first, and then go to Nigei Begadim? Why the hefsek? Nigei Adam, Nigei Begadim, back to Nigei Adam. So that the Orach Chaim asks that as well. So he says you could be miyasha both of these questions. He says because as he said earlier in the beginning of Parshas Tazria, he said that in the beginning of Parshas Metzora, he said that Zois Tia Teres HaMetzora, that Chazal learn out from here the Aveira of Tzaras. What is the Aveira of Tzaras? Zois Tia Teres HaMetzora, Moitzi Shemra. That's what they learn out. So if that's the case, he says that Chazal, the Torah wanted to tell us that Nigei Begadim also come for saying Moitzi Shemra. If we would have started off with Nigei Begadim and then went to Nigei Adam, then we would have thought, and then went with the Tara of Nigei Adam, we would have thought that the only punishment of saying Lashon Hora is for Nigei Adam. We wouldn't have realized that you get Nigei Begadim for saying Lashon Hora as well. So therefore the Torah said Nigei Adam, Nigei Begadim, then we said the Tara of Nigei Adam to tell us Zois Tia Teres HaMetzora, that Lashon Hora is going to cause both Nigei Adam and Nigei Begadim. That's the Orach Chaim's Mahalach. So, getting into this Orach Chaim, we have to go to this pasuk of Zois Tia Teres HaMetzora. Now, Ba'emes, this pasuk always bothered me for years. Zois Tia Teres HaMetzora. We had a whole parsha in Parshas Tazria that speaks about the Metzora, what a Metzora gets. You're right, the beginning of the parsha is talking about Isha Ki Tazria, but that's only the first few psukim. Right, Paragid Gimel starts with Adam Ki Yeh Ba'ar B'Saris Eisai Sapachas. It should have said over there, Zois Tia Teres HaMetzora. This is the Torah of the Metzora. Why did it wait until the all the way in Parshas Metzora? Why to wait until now to say Zois Tia Teres HaMetzora? And another kasha I had, it was a cute kasha, but why is it called Parshas Metzora? The whole Parshas Tazria is talking about a Metzora. Parshas Tazria could really be called Parshas Metzora. Only now we're saying this is Parshas Metzora. And the Orach Chaim, he asks a similar kasha over there in the beginning of Parshas Metzora. He asks that B'tzarich L'das, we learn out from Zois Tia Teres HaMetzora that this is the Torah of a Moitzi Shemra, of somebody who says Lashon Hora. So he says, Tzarich L'das, Lama Ramaz Hadavar B'makim Zeh B'zman Tahara. Why only now are we saying that Tzaras comes for Lashon Hora? Why didn't we say that all the way in the beginning? What's going on? Why did we wait until here? So we have three kashas on this pasuk that the Orach Chaim mentioned. So to get to come out with a teretz, we have to be makdim with why does Tzaras come? So there's a lot of chazals, but I saw there's a fascinating kliyakar in Paragid Gimel Pasuk Beis. He says that there's a lot of differences of chazal of why Negoim come, but he wants to say from the parsha itself, it's merumas that there are three things. There's be'eker three avainas. He says there's Lashon Hora, because Rashi says, why do we bring birds? Because they go talking, they go talking all around. So that's Lashon Hora. And there's another Aveir that it comes, which is Gas Ruach, which is Gaiva. And that's why the Metzora takes Eitz Erez Ve'ezayf, that we learn out from here that a cedar tree, he should be as low as a Ezayf. So that's another remez mefurish in the psukim. And the third one is on tzaras ayin, on having a bad eye. Why? Because the pasuk by Nigei Batim says, Uva asher lo yabayis. And the Gemara learns out, Tanvei Bishmol, Zeh sheyichad beisai loy, that his house is only for him. He doesn't want to give it to anybody else. And he says all the other things that Chazal say don't really have a smach in the parsha. So So that's why he's going to learn the Parsha that it's going on these three Averis. Lashon Hora, Gasis HaRuach, and Saras Ayin, which he includes Chemdas HaMammon, which is the love of money. So he says, Lefi Zeh, that's what the pasuk says. Adam ki yiyeh be'ar b'sarai, a person who has on the ar of his skin, se'es, oy sapachas, oy baheres. These three. What is se'es? So the Gemara learns out in Shavuos. Se'es means something high. So that, he says, is referring to Gases HaRuach, to Gaiva. What is sapachas? Sapachas is only tuffle. So he says, money is something that's tuffle to a person. It's not a part of them. The Rambam, he brings the Rambam in Shemona Prakim, that the Rambam says this, that all midas you could, become davuk to a person except for Aisha. And Baheres is the most white of the tzarases, and that is somebody who says Lashon Hora and he's malbim pnei chaveira, he makes them turn white. So he fears ice. He says that's why he's saying a pshat v'huval arna kayin, that only a kayin is able to be metame and metayer mitzayir. Why? Because a kayin has the opposite of these three midas. Where do we see that? We see, he says, Lashon Hora is gairim to make machlokes. So that's why Aaron, who we know was Reidav Shalom, so the Kehanim, that's why they're the ones who deal with the Mitzayah. Gaiva, we know Aaron HaKayin was together with Moshe. They both said V'nachnu ma. They said, who are we? They're from the biggest Anavim. And Chemdas HaMammon, he says, they weren't part of. They didn't get a chelik in the Nachla. They wouldn't even have an Ayin Hara. So he says it could be that's why a Mitzayra goes to the Kayin, because of these three Averis. So that's a fascinating Kliyakar. And if you look at the Kliyakar in the beginning of Parshas Mitzayra, he also says that Lefi his Mahalach, he answers so many Geshmak Kashas that he has in Pashat Diyukim in the Pasuk. He answers a lot of Kashas with this Mahalach Ayin Sham. We're not going to get into it. Lamaisa, that's the Kliyakar's Mahalach. But the Gemara in Erechin has two members. The Gemara in Erechin and Daf Tazayin Amar Beis, which is famous. The Gemara says, Amar Shmuel Bar Nachmeni, Amar Rabbi Yonasan, Al Shiva Dvarim Negayim Bayim. The Negayim come for 7 things. Al Lashon Hora, for Lashon Hora, Shvichas Damim, Shvu Hashav, Ve'al Gila Arayis, Ve'al Gasis HaRuach, Ve'al HaGezel, Ve'al Tzaras HaAyin. So the Kliyakar's 3 things are part of these 7, but the Gemara Mufur says 7 things. Aber the Gemara in Tesvav Amar Beis brings a memra, Amar Reb Yochanan Mishum Reb Yosi ben Zimra, sorry, not that one. But Amar Reb Yosi ben Zimra, Kol HaMesaper Lashon Hora Negayim Bayim Alav. Negayim come on him for saying Lashon Hora, Shenemar Melashni B'Seiser Eyu Oisei Atzmus. He brings a pasuk from Tehillim that somebody who talks about his friend B'Seiser Oisei Atzmus Uksiv Hasam, and it says a pasuk in Vayikra Litzmisus Umetargaminan Lechalutin, which means forever. Utnan ein bein Mitzayir Musker leMitzayir Muchlet ela Priyo Frima. The only difference between a Mitzayir Musker and a Mitzayir Muchlet is Priyo Frima. So you see that a Mitzayir is called Muchlet. So we say Atzmus means Hach Muchlet. So L'chayra, we have a stira here in the Gemaras. One Gemara says, Kol HaMesaper Lashon Hora Negayim Bayim Alav, that it's only Lashon Hora. And the Gemara on Tazayin Amud Aleph says, Al Shiva Dvarim Negayim Bayim, for 7 things. So there's a Karban Asham that says that if you look at the Gemara by the Shiva Dvarim says Negayim Bayim. It doesn't say Alav. But by Mesaper Lashon Hora, it says Negayim Bayim Alav. So Zakti Karban Asham, that when you do the other 6 Averis, you just bring the goyim down to the world. It's lav dafka on you. It's lav dafka on you. But when you say Lashon Hora, Negoyim Bayim Alav, there, Avada, the Negoyim are going to come onto you. And he says that with this, you could answer a kasha of the Shita Mekubetzes on Daf Tezayin Amud Aleph, Ois Zayin, that the Shita asks, why does the Gemara bring a pasuk of Meloshni B'Seisei Re'eyu Oisei Atzmis? Why didn't it just bring the pasuk by Miriam? Where by Miriam it says, Zachar es asher asa Hashem Elokecha LaMiriam. Why didn't it bring the pasuk of Miriam that we learn out from there that you're not supposed to say Lashon Hora? So Zakta Karban Asham, like his Mahalach, you could answer that from Miriam it's not muchach that for saying Lashon Hora you're gonna get the Negoyim. But from the pasuk that the Gemara brings, the pasuk says, "Malashni b'seisei re'eyu oisei atzmis oisei him." He is going to get the punishment. He is going to get that nega. That's what the Karban Hashem answers. Now the Maharsha says a half of a fellow dikateretz, and he just says it kalachayat, and I'll read it for you inside. The Maharsha says like this: the Efsher, the Haitzi Misaper Lashon Hora min Aklal designed Dvarim Mevim Negoyim. Why did take out Lashon Hora and have its own memra? Why? Because Yesh Bahen she'efsher sheyechupar gam b'mitzoyer musker. Because for the other 6 things, all you have to be is a mitzoyer musker. You don't have to get the punishment of being a mitzoyer muchlat. Masha'enkein b'Lashon Hora de lo yechupar rak b'mitzoyer muchlat. Lashon Hora is going to get a mitzoyer muchlat. Ubayi b'tarasai taglachas v'tziparim. And you're going to need to do the tahara with the shaving of all his hair and with the birds. You're going to need to do that. So Zok the Maharsha, half of a fella. He says, when the Gemara says, Kol Masaper Lashon Hora Negoyim Bayim Alav, yeah, because there you're going to become a mitzoyer muchlat. You're going to become a vaday mitzoyer. It's not going to be any suffix. There you're doomed. You're for sure getting the worst punishment. For the other 6 things, the Gemara on Tezayin Amud Aleph that says Shiva Dvarim Negoyim Bayim, you could get a kapara even with just being a mitzoyer musker. That's the Maharsha's teretz in the stira in the 2 Gemaras. And the Tzayin Kachim, who is the Talmud of the Maharsha, he says that with this, first of all, you could explain the Maharsha. Why are the other 6 things just becoming a mitzoyer musker is enough, and you don't need the full punishment of mitzoyer muchlat? So he goes through 4 out of the 7, and we're not going to go through each one, but he says that the midah k'neged midah of 4 out of the 7 is mitzoyer musker, sending him away, making him separate, is enough to get the kapara for the einish that he did. Just sending him away. And he says with this, he answers a phenomenal kasha. The Gemara brings a raya in Erechin Daf Tazvavam Beis. The Gemara says, how do you know a mitzoyer is called a mitzoyer muchlat? And it brings a Gemara in Megillah that ein bein mitzoyer musker le mitzoyer muchlat ela priyo ufrima. So he asks, there's so many Gemaras, Mishnayos, that call a mitzoyer muchlat. If all we want is a raya that a mitzoyer should be called a mitzoyer muchlat, why are we going to that Gemara in Megillah? So he says the pshat is because the Gemara in Megillah says ein bein mitzoyer musker le mitzoyer muchlat ela priyo ufrima, but la'inyan sending out, that they're equal. So that's what the Gemara wanted to bring out, that a mitzoyer musker has the punishment of being sent out. So that's why for the other 6 things, it still is midah k'neged midah, because it has that punishment of being sent out. But somebody who says Lashon Hora, he needs to have that mitzoyer muchlat. So lefi the Maharsha, with the hezber of the Tzayin Kachim, we can explain the 3 kashas that we asked what were the three kashas that we asked on the beginning of Parshas Metzora? Zois tia teres ha-Metzora. First of all, why are we waking up now to say Zois tia teres ha-Metzora? Second of all, why is the parsha called Parshas Metzora? Third of all, why are we waiting till the Tahara to talk about somebody who says Lashon Hora? So Lefidus Maharsha, it's amazing because Zois tia teres ha-Metzora, what do Chazal learn? It's somebody who's saying Lashon Hora. So only somebody who's saying Lashon Hora needs this Tahara of Taglachas and Siparim. Only he needs that. But a Metzora Musker that only gets locked up and he doesn't end up becoming Vadai Metzora, he doesn't need the whole beginning of Parshas Metzora. So why is it called Parshas Metzora? Because now we're saying somebody who says Lashon Hora is going to need this Tahara. Until now, we could have been talking about a musker who wouldn't be referred to as a Metzora, because Lashon Hora needs that punishment of getting to the stage of having a Tahara. So Lefidus Maharsha answers all three kashas beautifully, and it's a massive chiddush of the Maharsha. It's so massive that I think it's not so pashut. And I might have found a Rashi from Daf Yomi that sounds like Rashi's not learning like the Maharsha. So what's this Rashi? Rashi, the Gemara Menachos Sadi Aleph Amud Beis says that it's talking about the nesachim of chatas and a asham of a Metzora, that chatas and a asham of a Metzora are different, they need nesachim. So Taich Divrei HaGemara, the Gemara says that what are these karbanos doing? What are the asham and the chatas of a Metzora doing? The Gemara says the asham is coming lahachshir and the chatas is coming lachaper, which means the asham is just coming to get the Metzora to be back to somebody who is tar. But the chatas is coming as a kapara. So I'm going to digress a little bit because I couldn't not say this. The Ramban in Parshas Metzora Perek Yudalid Pasuk Yud Ches asks, why does it say V'chiper alav hakayin 3 times? Why does it say 3 times in the pasuk? Once by the asham, once by the chatas, and once by the oila and the mincha. It says v'chiper. So Zok the Ramban Moedik, he says, Ulai ha'asham yechaper al ma'aloi asher mo'al kaidem nigay. The asham is going to do the kapara on the chet that he did before he even got the nega. Ve'achatas al chetoi asher chata b'mea nega. And he's bringing a chatas on the chet that he said that he did during when he had the nega. What's that chet? Ulai b'tzare nasan tifla leilakim. That because he was bitzar, he said things against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like you find by the Yeledes, she brings a korban because she made a shvua, she's never going to have any kids. She said something wrong. So here too, maybe the Metzora b'shas, when he had saras, he said something bad. And the Eiland the Mincha is a kaifer nefesh sheyizke li'tar v'lashuv al alay. It's so that he'll be able to go back. It's a machshir. This I wanted to say is the Ramban Lashitasei, in going back to Parshas Vayikra, Perek Hey Pasuk Tezvav, the Ramban asks over there, why is a carbon asham called a asham, and why is a carbon chatas called a chatas? So he says, because asham is really referring to asham, the lashon of shamim, that you're lost, you're gone, you're a goner. So the Ramban says, that a asham is really for averos that are much worse than a chatas. A chatas is for things, his lashon is chatas moyer al dava asher nata bay min haderech. You did them b'sheigig. You by mistake did them. But a asham is for things that really you should be lost. And over there he says, Imamish says, he brings in asham and a chatas of a Metzora. And he says, Ba'avur sha'Metzora chashiv kameis v'nei hu kfar shamein va'aved, he's lost. Yikra karbana harishon asham. Sheyagin alav, that will protect him min ashma asher hu shamein ba, from the asham that he did, just like he says here. V'asheni chata shu mechaper shigegaisav. So by us in Parshas Metzora, the Ramban explains a little more. So here the Ramban says that the asham and the chatas are both coming for kaparas. That's what the Ramban says. But l'chayr, this is keneged our Gemara in Menachos Tzadi Aleph Amud Beis, that the Gemara says beferish that the asham is only coming lahachsher, is only coming to let the Metzora go back into the kal, not lechaper at all. So be'emes the Chassam Sofer in Tshuvas Arachayim Kuf Ayin Dalet, he brings that a guy in Moira Rav Zalman Emrich asked him that really the Gemara in Menachos is a stira to Gemara in Shavuos. The Gemara in Shavuos Daf Ches Amud Aleph says about a Metzora, minige echberle, that the nega was a kapara for the Metzora, the karban lishtaruya bekalasi, and the karban is just to let him go back in the kal. But so this is the Chari Keneged, the Gemara in Menachos. The Gemara in Menachos says that the chatas is coming lechaper. What do you mean? According to the Gemara in Shavuos, he was already nechaper from his nega. So the Chassam Sofer says that, yeah, they're very good kashas. L'chayr you could answer that avada the nega was mechaper, but it wasn't a full kapar. It wasn't a full kapar until you bring the chatas. That's when you have your full kapar. So that's how you could maybe be miyashiv both of these gemaras. But then the Chassam Sofer at the end, he brings this Ramban from Chumash, and he says the Ramban Vadai is Tzarchi and Gadol from these gemaras. So Baruch Shekivanti to the Chassam Sofer's kasha and the Ramban. So getting back to what we came into this Gemara for. So when the Gemara says chatas lechaper, that chatas is for a kapara. Kapara for what? So Rashi in both Ksav Yad, in both Rashis in Menachos says the al zayin dvarim negoyim bayim. The chatas is coming from kapara for the 7 things, like the Gemara in Erechin said. It's for 7 things. So now you have to go a shtickle tiefer. Metzora musker. Does a Metzora musker who doesn't in the end become a vadai Metzora? He ends up just becoming Torah without becoming a vadai Metzora. Is he mechayev in karbanos? So the first place you go to look is the Mishnah in Megillah, Daf Ches Amud Beis. Ein bein tar mitay chesker letar mitay chachlet. Somebody, a Metzora that becomes tar mitay chesker from being a musker, to a Metzora that becomes tar from being a muchlet. Ela taglachas v'tziparim. The shaving and the birds, the tziparim. So you see that the only difference, it sounds like, between a musker and a Metzora is the taglachas and the tziparim. But it sounds like the karbanis, they would be equal. And as they state in the Meiri Beferish says that le'inyan karbanis, a Metzora musker would actually be mechayev to bring the karbanis. He says, ha kol shar karbanis to Metzora muchlet mevi b'yom tarasai ava musker sheyatza tar meviam. So that's what the Meiri says. But Rashi in Megillah Ches Amud Beis, Rashi clearly says that that's not true. Rashi Dibra Maschel Latar Mitay Chachlet. Rashi says the Af Agav the Ikar Karbanis Asham Veloig Shemen Miu Hacha B'Yom Tarasei Ufarasei Udiktani V'Lei Ari B'Karbanis Shein B'Shmini. The Mishnah is not talking about karbanis that are on the 8th day, but Avada a Metzora musker does not bring the karbanis chatas asham and the oila. Rashi in Yevamis Ayin Daled Amud Beis says the same thing. Umetzora musker nami lav bar karbanhu. He does not bring a karban. Kednan hasam ein bein metzora tarim teichaskel tarim teichachel el taglachas v'ziparim. V'kevan de taglachas leka. If there's no taglachas, karban nami leka. He also doesn't bring a karban. And this is how Rashi explains the Gemara, that the Gemara says that he's lav bar, a Metzora Musker is lav bar kapara because he doesn't bring a carbon. So Rashi Beferish in both Megillah and Yevamah says that a Metzora Musker does not bring a carbon. And really the Sfas Emes in Megillah says that the Meiri is a Pella because it's Mefurish Gemara in Yevamah that says that a Metzora Musker is not a bar kapara, does not bring a carbon. Lamaisa, from Rashi, you see that a Metzora Musker does not bring karbanos. So, getting back to what we said, Rashi and Menachos, Sadi Aleph Amud Beis, the Rashi says the chatos comes for kapara dal shiva dvarim negayim bayim. According to the Maharsha, shiva dvarim negayim bayim is for a Metzora Musker. Misaper Lashon Hora, that's a muchlet. So only somebody who says Lashon Hora is a muchlet. Who brings karbanos? Only a muchlet. So Rashi, what Rashi and Menachos Sadi Aleph Amud Beis should have said, Chatas lechaper, what's the kapara? On Lashon Hora, not on the Zayin Dvarim. On the Zayin Dvarim, you could just be a Metzora Musker. You're not going to be, lav dafka, you're going to be a muchlet, which brings karbanos. So l'chayra from Rashi and Menachos Sadi Aleph Amud Beis, you could be matchik, but from Rashi al Pi Pashtus, it would sound like that Rashi holds that even for the Zayin Dvarim, you could be a Metzora Muchlet and you could be Mechayiv in Karbanos. Because Rashi Lishitatzei holds only a Metzora Muchlet brings Karbanos, and still he says Zayin Dvarim Negayim Bayim, that those 7 things, you'll be a Metzora Muchlet, you could be a Metzora Muchlet, and it's coming for a Kapara. So Lamaisa, from Rashi and Menachos, it would sound like not the Maharsha. Shkayach.